Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be reviewing the third book in the Star Trek Legacies Trilogy, Purgatory's Key, by Dayton Ward and Kevin Dillmore. This is the third book in the sequence for the 50th anniversary epic trilogy. The first two books included Captain to Captain by Greg Cox and Best Defense by David Mack, and this book follows up both of them. And I saw one book reviewer on Goodreads comment that this book was a very safe book to do, and I absolutely agree with that assessment. This is a very safe book to write. I'll get into that why now. So there was a lot set up in the first two books. The first book set up this epic, mind-bending alternate reality with the Jator and their other universe. And then the second book set up this epic political battle between the Federation and the Romulans, and also the Klingons are on edge, and so they might be fighting with the Federation, and so there's this tensions are rising in our universe as our heroes try to save the heroes who are lost in the other universe. And so this book basically has two different sides to it, flipping back and forth. And this book does not go anywhere that the reader will be shocked that it goes. Ward and Dillmore basically take the reader exactly where you would expect, exactly where it should take you, and it's a very fun ride. Whereas David Mack's book felt like, while Greg Cox set us onto this path, David Mack took the steering wheel and took us on a hard right turn, and we were still on the tracks, but it was a hard right turn, and it feels like Kevin Dillmore and Dayton Ward are putting us back right in the middle of the lane and taking us exactly to the finish line. And so this book is good, but it's not great. What makes this book so interesting is its development of this Jator universe. I was a bit surprised, in a sense, even though I said how unsurprising the book was. The one thing that did surprise me was the way that Dillmore and Ward used some of the characters. It is the characters in the other universe unite together very quickly, and there's almost no hesitation. There's almost no difficulty. It just happens. And this happens so that he can move the story along. The Star Trek books of this time were mass market paperbacks, ended up being between 300 and 400 pages, and as a result, it feels like they were hamstrung. If the first third of the book had focused more on exploring this new universe and the characters meandering around more and noticing new things, I think that it would have been a better book. But instead, the action happens super quick, and we're moved from plot event to plot event to make sure it all goes along. In the main universe, you have Spock and his team trying to develop a way to use the transfer key to save the people on the other side, and you have Kirk attempting to avoid a diplomatic disaster. And those plot lines were a lot of fun. I really like reading Spock when he's interacting with people like Uhura and with Chekhov and with Scotty, and I like reading about Kirk when he's facing off against the Klingons and the Romulans. Dayton Ward and Kevin Dillmore both do a very good job with Kirk and Spock. They really get the original series really well. The next thing I want to point out is some of the standout minor characters in this book. One of the standout minor characters was Jategler, who is, I think that's pronouncing that right. I'm reading a book. I don't know how to pronounce anything. I've been told I'm mispronounced symbionts. I call them symbionts, so I don't know what I'm talking about pronunciation-wise. But Jategler was a Klingon who is essentially a Klingon captain, and I just loved reading about this Klingon throughout the book. I thought he was just an entertaining character. I thought that he was a bit of a refreshing character in that he was willing to work with Kirk so easily. I thought that it would be more difficult, but he is very eager to work with Kirk. The second character that I want to point out was a character called Vizsla, who was very eager to get revenge. She's a Klingon, and I enjoyed all of Vizsla's scenes as well. But of the more known characters in the Star Trek universe, I would point out Amanda Grayson, who had quite a major role in this book. And I had seen Amanda Grayson's character in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Hadn't really seen her much else. Maybe she's in the original series more, but I haven't watched much of the original series. So her character was a pleasant character to read about. Her storyline was well-paced, and she provided a unique and fresh perspective to the book that I think made it more interesting than if she had been gone. If you hadn't had her as the anchor for our characters in our universe, then I don't think it would have worked as well, even if you had used Spock as the anchor instead because of his connection to his father. I really wish, however, we had gotten more of Gorkon. We were promised Gorkon in Book 2, and he just doesn't show up. And so in Book 3, I was like, all right, it's Gorkon. We saw a few scenes of him in Book 2, but now we're ready to really get him, and then he's only in a few scenes here. And I was like, really? And Dayton Ward and Kevin Dillmore do something that I knew had to happen and was also pretty funny, which is they had to make sure that Gorkon and Kirk never meet, even though they are really close to each other at times in the book. And I thought that was really funny, the way that they deftly kept them from meeting each other. Overall, I really enjoyed the book. I think the strongest point of the book was the final third, when they tied everything up. There was a very fun scene to paint in the reader's minds regarding the action around the third act, and I really thought that really elevated the rest of the book. I thought the rest of the book was fairly mediocre, but that final action scene really raised it a lot. This book didn't have a lot of the deeper themes, as really the whole trilogy didn't, but it did have overall Star Trek themes about cooperation, about infinite diversity, about working with your enemies, those types of things that are all laudable goals. And so as a whole, the trilogy, I think, is pretty good, and I think that this particular book is also good, but I think it is the weakest of the trilogy, and I would give it a 7.0 out of 10. Just doesn't hit the same heights as the other books, but a highly enjoyable book, and I do recommend the trilogy. I know I'm not as positive on this as I am other Star Trek series, but it really was a breath of fresh air to read this TOS trilogy. Normally you read a TOS standalone book, and it's great to read, but you're missing a lot of the meat that could be there. And this trilogy is similar, but it's more drawn out, and so you have 300,000 words instead of just 100,000 words to read. So I highly recommend the whole trilogy, and this book in particular as well. If you've read this trilogy and this particular book, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what other TOS books I should be reading right now. And there's any other Star Trek books I should be reading. Please subscribe to the channel and like this video. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.